Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 5 of Nerdstalgic with me, Luke, the Ginger Bookworm. Can you believe it's been 5 episodes so far? I'm still here. I'm still doing this. I'm still here. I know, to be honest, I'm just still overjoyed since the first episode of just how far I've come and how far I've evolved. I'll be honest, I'm one of these, we get these people on Instagram or Facebook whenever they write a status, they post a photo, video, they like their own stuff. I'm that kind of guy because I do. I feel like if you're going to post about it, obviously you like it and you like what you say or like what you've done, so you're gonna like your own stuff. And it's the same with the podcast. I sit and I listen to myself, even though I find it really cringy. The more I listen to myself, the better I can understand the like if I take too long pauses, or if I say so, or I say like a lot, or I say a lot, even though you don't know because I haven't explained it to you yet. So there's a lot of that in. So I'm still sort of happy and proud and as joyous as I was from the first ever episode to the 5th one. I should be saying this. I'm at my 10 to 20th episode, really. But I'm here 5 episodes in, technically more because you've got the added side quest ones as well. But I'm evolving, I'm changing. So we're always sort of learning, as Doctor Who would, or as, say Doctor Who, be more specific, as Matt Smith's Doctor would say, we're always changing. And it's a good thing to change, just as long as we remember who we were before. And then we keep going, that's good. I feel like I'm butchering his beautiful, really tear-jerking speech. But the concept is still there, constantly changing, constantly evolving. Just remember who we were beforehand and learn from past selves and then use that to become a better person in the future. So, it works best. But today's episode is not just about me waffling on and, celebrating how long I've been here for. Going off last episode last week, it was very bookish, very deep, very spiritual. Again, I didn't plan for it to go that deep. I didn't plan for it to go as spiritualistic as it did. But it went really, really well. I got a lot of great feedback above it. One of the biggest sort of feedbacks that I got was people were saying, well, how is it that you managed to read so much? How is it that you managed to have so many books? It must cost you a fortune, how much like you've read and then having to spend so much, or how, and people were saying, well, how did you, because I mentioned in last week's episode, if you listened, I mentioned how that I have ways of not spending a penny, but able to read loads of money and have different sort of skills in that field. And people was really interested in that. So I figured I will dedicate today's episode on that topic, on breaking down the fundamentals of collecting, basically. Because before I get into it, anybody who is a collector, specifically this video is going to be about books, but anybody who's a collector knows that you have to shop around. You have to look around. You can't just sort of go for the first thing you find. Like you find it, okay, I found it. Can I find it cheaper? Or can I find ways I can get this without having to, spend the least amount of money? And in terms of books, there are fantastic and great ways, which I will get into in the next segment about how to do it. But that is what this episode's about. I'm going to try to delve in as deep as I can to try to help you and give tips on when it comes to collecting books. But again, it can be used for other things, but mainly, how to save money on books, how to get books for free, and basically how to read more with spending less. Because that's the end goal at the end of the day. Because books are great. They're a fantastic hobby. I love to read. The problem is, though, they're an expensive hobby and they're an addictive hobby as well. And expense and addictive, they don't go together well, because it just turns out we haven't got enough money, and then we get sad because we can't buy the things that we want. Again, it's the addiction part of it. So any way that we can feed our addiction by also not having to, empty our purses and wallets is always a good thing. So join me in the next segment as I try my best to break down my experiences and try to give you some advice on how you too can sort of save money, almost completely save money when you are collecting and reading books. So let's dive in, shall we? So let's start from the beginning. Best place to start is tell you about my experience about how I have managed to read so many books without spending a penny. So in 2020, as we all know, I won't get into it because it is a very sort of not very nice subject. But as we know, 2020, COVID, lockdown, we're stuck. Can't go anywhere. Can't do anything. Luckily for me, 2019, the year prior, Christmas, I got loads of books and I was sorted. But the thing is, I'm a very quick reader, and with nothing else to do, like can't go anywhere, can't do anything. I've played all my video games, I've watched all my shows. Again, it was another issue that I had when I finished senior school back in 2014. Where it was like I've done everything, and I've just got this big pile of books. Might as well, you know, read them, which is all good because the pile of books lasted me the whole 6 weeks before I started college. Problem is, the lockdown lasted longer than 6 weeks, so it was like I quickly burned through them a lot, and I needed more. I needed. It is the thing is with reading, as I mentioned prior, it is an addiction. You once you get into it properly, you will constantly just want to have a book in your face all the time. Like even when you're sleeping, you don't want to sleep, because I've done it many times where I've stayed up to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because I had to finish a book or had to get to the last chapter, you know. But then again, there's never just one chapter. It's like, oh, I do one more. I gotta do one more, you know, and then next thing you know, it's 4 o'clock in the morning and you're tired. Um, you know, so when you have this much of addiction, then you have this much of a love for um something. And it's again, it's not just books, specifically for books, but like it can be for anything that you collect, anything that you love and enjoy. You want it all the time. You want it. You want to have new sort of stock. Obviously, as I said, can't go anywhere, can't do nothing. So I looked into new avenues, new ways of trying to find books and audios and ebooks that I didn't have to spend money on, that I could get virtually for free. And now it worked, and I will obviously explain later how it worked. I don't want to give away the spoiler too soon, otherwise there's no point in doing this whole long video. But rest assured, it worked, because in 2020 I read 200 books in total. In 2021 I read 180. I decided after reading 200 books that I needed to take it slow, and my idea of taking it slow was 180 books. Well, around 180, 181, 82. I rounded up to 180. It's just easier. But yeah, I read a lot of books in those past 2 years, and I'm currently this year I've read 19, and we're only not even halfway through February. So, oh no, sorry, 19. I've read 16. Even though 16 is a lot of books, considering, again, we're not that far into the year. And more than likely, it will get bigger as the year goes on. And by the end of the year, more than likely, it'll be above 100. I even passed a milestone this year where I have read 700 books in my lifetime. So you can say, before we get into it, that I know what I'm talking about here. Well, I hope that you guys, that comes off as cross, and I'm not some sort of bumbling addict who's just addicted to books, who just decided to fuck the system and beat having to the paywall. But hopefully, I can best sort of guide you in the best direction. Like I said, past 2 years, I've read a lot of books, and it's all down to these. How can I explain it? These, hold on, I actually wrote them down. There's one, two, eight different subtopics, shall we say, subgenres? I didn't want to call them. Things that we can get into to kind of explain how best to save you money, how best to get what you want without having to spend anything. And nearly all of these things will cost you nothing. And some of them will only cost you a couple of pounds, a couple of dollars, wherever in the world that you're listening, and depending on how your sort of country works, these things. But you should never pay more than a tenner or £10, $10. You know what I mean? It's always under to £5 to £10, $5 to $10. You know, these things won't break the bank at all. Some of them won't break the bank at all. Won't even touch the bank. Won't even know that the bank exists. You know. So now you know my past. Now you know that I've read loads of books like in my lifetime, and that I read loads of books 2020, loads of books last year. Hopefully, with this guidance, with this in the back of your mind, we can go on and you can believe what I'm going to say, and hopefully, follow these tips, tricks, whatever you want to call them, that I'm going to sort of give you now, and they will help you. So, without further ado, stop me waffling. Let's get into it. So, the first big topic is the internet. That's what we're going to focus on. Specifically, a beautiful little indie sort of website company called World of Books, currently known as WOB, W-O-B, since they renamed. I still call them World of Books because that's what I know them as. But World of Books are a huge conglomerate sort of company based in the UK, and what they do is that they go to charity shops, go to landfills, anywhere where books are going to be recycled and going to be destroyed. They go in, save as many books as they can, kind of like, Greenpeace, but for books. That's the way I like to describe them to my friends anyway. They go in, save them, as many as they can, any that can be saved and salvaged, or that don't want to be sold, and they put them in their warehouse, and then they put them on their website, and all these books are used. All of them are in different conditions. Sometimes you get very good, sometimes you get used and not very good, bent on the spine. But what this means is that they sell them back to us, the public, at very cheap prices. Some of them are like for pennies. Majority of the books on there you could buy for like, the average book is around about £8 to £10 in the UK, depending on what it is. If it's a hardback, it's a bit more expensive, but the average paperback is about £8 to £10. Majority of the books that are on there are so cheap that you could buy quite a few for the £8 to £10 that you're going to spend on one. Granted, they're all used. They're all, some of them are bent at the spines, some of them are have been manhandled, been dog-eared. Some ruffian has got a hold of them and really mistreated them, which you should never mistreat books. The reason why books are so heavy is because of the worlds that are inside them. We must protect those worlds. We must look after them. We must treat them as if they are alive. Again, you could say I'm crazy, but, technically they are, because they're paper. And what was paper? Trees. What are trees? Alive. So you could say they are technically still alive. If you're a Doctor Who fan, you know that, you should never mistreat, you should be careful what trees you chop down, because you might get the Vast Narada. But I'm going a bit too nerdy. That's on Doctor Who, and I don't want to go that far. Coming back to it, though, coming back to World of Books, I've bought from them for the past, got to be 3 to 4 years now. The last book I brought off them was Cujo by Stephen King. Granted, I'm currently looking at I've got my copy here next to me at the moment, so I could best describe it to you. My copy, it's bad. It's bruised. The spine's been cracked. It's got a lot of fading on it, but it's an older book from the 80s. I wanted it because the cover, obviously, sadly, this is an audio format, so you can't see the cover. But the best way I can explain it to you, it's a special series that's got a slash down the middle, and you've got the boy being attacked by the giant dog, by Cujo. It's special edition. I wanted that edition, so it was like, get the really bad one or get one of the new modern editions, and I don't like the modern editions. The reason I bring that little nugget up is because you can find really old sort of editions on there. Like, for example, if you're looking for, say, Cujo, you put Cujo in by Stephen King, they'll give you a list of, like, we have this edition, we have that edition. Depending on the rarity, again, the price will go up. When you click on the said book that you want, you can then choose, oh, I want very good condition, or I want it in good condition, or I want it in, like, used. At different conditions, different prices. So if it's very good, so it's like basically brand new, that might be a little bit extra. If it's good, depends on what you want. If you like me and you don't really care about the condition of the outside the book, as long as the paper's fine and I can read the words, um, then I tend to go for the good. Depending on the price. If it's not a lot, if it's not going to make much of a difference, I'll go for the very good. But usually I'll just go for the good because I don't really care. But yeah, you can choose which editions you want, again, depending on the rarity and the limited edition of said edition, or if the, say, book is signed, it might be a bit more. Um, but I love it. What I love about it is the gamble about the, because I've had this experience myself. I'll go in looking to be like, oh, I don't like the editions that they've got, but like I'm going to have to go for this one because that's all they've got left. And then you buy it and you're like, I'm not really looking forward to that edition, but I'll deal with the cover. I'll just pretend that I won't have to look at it. I'll just read the pages, and then it comes in the post like a week later, and it's a different edition. And I love that lucky dip of like, you're going to buy it, but you don't know what the book, like, what book it's going to be, but you don't know what the book's going to look like, in terms of what edition you get. And many times I've had that surprise where, like, again, Stephen King books, I've bought a Stephen King book expecting the one advertised, and then I get a completely different version. Sometimes it's not so great. The lucky dip is not so great. Sometimes it is, but I just like that thrill, like that adventure of not knowing what edition I'm going to get. If I'm going to get a nice one, if I'm going to get a horrible one, if I'm going to get a collector's one, And again, it's all for pennies, all for cheap. The Cujo, because of the edition and what it was, I think it cost me about £8. But I bought the Gears of War book, Jacinto's Remnant, from them. I think that was only £3 to £4. My version, I think I've mentioned it before, is a bit beaten up. Somebody who had it and really just sort of read it and 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 must have lent it out, and they read it and read it and read it because it is well used. That being said, it's still readable. It's still, I would say, in a good decent condition considering it was a book from 2009. It's been well read, well loved, and in my eyes, that's a good sign of a book that's worth reading. If it's been well read, if it looks like it's been beaten up because somebody's carried it everywhere they've went, that's a sign of a good book to me. For some people, they don't like it because the whole sort of, oh, it doesn't look nice, it doesn't work with my aesthetic. I'm not one of those book nerds. All I care about, as long as I can read it, it's fine. But World of Books is fantastic. If you live in the UK, you get free delivery. So it's anywhere in the UK you are, you get free delivery. Outside the UK, you will have to pay delivery charge. But if you listen to this and you're in the UK, definitely check World of Books out. They're on Twitter, Instagram, or www.wob. I think that's what they've set it as now. .co.uk. Or is it .com or .org? I should have looked. Basically, just search World of Books onto Google and you'll find them. Or if you go on to eBay, which I will get onto eBay later, but if you go onto eBay, you can just type in World of Books and then they'll give a selection that are there, and then type in the book you're looking for and you'll be able to get it there. I find you get more lucky dips when buying through them through eBay, because on them they just give you of like, oh, you're looking for Cujo, here's Cujo, and it's like, okay, I don't know what edition I'm going to get, so I'll buy it and it might be different, or it might be the one that's advertised. Some people don't like that. Some people want what's advertised. Me, I like the lucky dip. I like the surprise of it. And again, like I said, I've been stung myself a few times, but it doesn't bother me because I'm not spending loads of money. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not spending like £10 to £20 on one book. I'm spending pennies technically, on books that I've saved them from the landfill, and it's recycling. And if you're like me, you like recycling, protecting the planet. It's just reuse, recycling. Instead of it going to a landfill or being turned into a pulp or just getting buried and rotting away, it's being saved. And if you keep the book, it's going to last longer. If you give it to a friend, or you give it to a charity shop, or a library, then it's going to have another lease on life. You've saved that book being read, because all books should be read. No book should be forgotten. Terry Pratchett says himself, the older a book gets, the more volatile it gets. And if it's not being read, the more uncontrollable. So we've got to read the books to keep the worlds inside. Otherwise, the worlds will break free, and then we'll have a lot of hassle. So we have to read books. We can't destroy them. We've got to look after them, and that's what World of Books are doing, and that's why I just love them. I talk to them many times. I'm on I was going to say first name basis, but that's not really true. There is a word I was looking for. Gone, it's escaped me. Basically, I keep in contact with them all the time, and they are very nice, really helpful. I've never had a bad experience with them, so I can highly recommend World of Books. Check them out, and save some money and save a book from a landfill, from recycling. So that's tip number one. World of Books. Check them out. Tip number two is charity shops. Charity shops are fantastic places. Charity shops are treasure troves. They are an Aladdin's cave of wonder and mystery. You'll be what I always say to my friends, you'll be amazed of the things that people just give away without even bothering to look of how much it is, resale value. How collectible things are. People just be like, oh well, I don't need it anymore. Oh, it's a piece of tat, don't need it, give it away to charity, which is fine. I'm not complaining. Let them do that, because there's people like me who take advantage of that, who go to charity shops and they go looking for collectibles. Like many times I've gone in there and I've managed to get like LPs, vinyl discs for my record player, for very, very cheap, because you know well, I was going to say because it's a charity shop, but of course it's a charity shop, but because people just give it away, not knowing what they are. Like I've managed to get loads. I got a Back to the Future soundtrack, was still in its plastic wrapping from like whenever I think Back to the Future came around, about the 80s. I know I should really know the day of Back to the Future because I call myself a nerd. But when it came out, obviously they have a plastic wrapping on them, and this one still did. It's a little bit broken at side. It's not completely perfect, but it's still got the plastic wrapping on it, and the disc is fine. There's no scratches on it. The cover itself, Back to the Future cover, is again, it's fine. It's a little bit sort of aged on the top with the sun's got it a little bit, but apart from that, it's completely perfect. I managed to get it for like, I think it was like £8, where that is really, really expensive to buy, original from the 80s, and I managed to get it for pennies. So you can get a lot of really magical, mystical things really when you go to charity shops. People disclaim them. People just look at them and go, oh, it's a charity shop, you ain't going to find anything in there. I'm like, well, actually, you'd be surprised. In terms of books, they are a huge treasure trove. When I used to go to college, university, the city centre near my college was just full of charity shops constantly. Like there was, I would say there would be more charity shops than there were just average normal shops. They were everywhere. Around every corner there was a charity shop, and you had different sort of companies. You had like the Red Cross, you had Acorns, Marie Curie, the Blue Cross, the Pet Shelter, Air Ambulance, the British Heart Foundation. There's loads, absolutely loads, and I went to all of them. And one of the best ones I found was Acorns. Acorns was one of the best for books, because every Acorn shop I've ever been in, they always have a dedicated like area just for books. So I recommend just go into your local charity shop and just have a dumpster dive, basically, because you end up finding things that not just books. You can find some amazing bits of like statues. I found collectibles, I found statues, I found like Marvel, DC kind of things that would go for a lot of money, brand new. Again, it's being used secondhand. If it's not broken, if it's not chipped, if it's never gone it, you'll usually find that they're giving it away for £1, £2, that sort of thing. And it's the same with the books. You go in there, and I've found loads of books that are practically brand new. I found Dune, right? The whole, not the whole collection, but the first book of Dune is huge, right? That book is it's not expensive, but most places you go to get the first book of Dune, it's around about £10, just because how big it is. It might be more depending on the edition. This one I got, I think, was the 50th anniversary edition. and it was practically brand new, never been touched. It looked like somebody had bought it, realized how big it is, that they're never going to read it, and they just left it. It wasn't touched. I found it, and I picked it up. I was like, "Oh God, this is a beautiful edition. It's gorgeous." Turned it round, saw the sticker. The sticker said £1, £1. I will say that again, £1, practically brand new. Like if I went to Waterstones or WH Smith's and got the same book and put them next to each other, you wouldn't be able to tell which one I had just bought for £1. That's the kind of deals you can get at charity shops. You know, I've managed to get some of the Skullduggery books, again practically brand new. I got both for, like, I think one was £2, one was £1.50. I'm not breaking the bank, and at the end of the day, all the money's going to charity, all of it. So the way I like to see charity shops is, especially in terms of books, is that I am feeding my addiction by getting the books that I want for dirt cheap, while at the same stage I'm giving money back to those that need it. And because I went to loads of different charity shops, I would they just knew me when I went in. It was just like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm fine." You're like, "Your books?" I'm like, "Yeah, books again." And like, "Oh, we got," because every week they'd get a new stock, especially Acorns. Every week people would just send books in, and every week they'd just get a refresh of stock. So I'd come in one week and they'd have like books, and there might be something I want, might be something I don't want, and I'd come in and buy whatever. I'd come in the next week and there'd be tons of books. There'd be like too many, and I want to take them all. I managed to get the uh, Ember and Elder books, the Dragon books, that are based off the Aragorn movies. I managed to get that whole collection, the first two books, in a lovely little box set for about £2. I managed to get a lot of the Stephen King books, The Talisman. That was like 50p, practically brand new. I'm just looking at my room around my library, that my little library that I've got around me. Again, like I mentioned, the Skullduggery books. I've managed to get so many books for practically pennies. I usually, to be honest, I got to the point where I felt bad. I felt like I was robbing from charity because I was buying so many. But again, they're not. Even though it all adds up, it was still that thing of like, I'm buying so many for so cheap that I feel like I'm practically stealing. So what I'd end up doing, I'd end up like, say for example, it was like £1.50. I'd give an extra sort of like 60p, and they'd be like, "Oh, no, you paid too much," and I'm like, "No, keep it." I feel bad. I feel like I'm robbing this from you. They'd always find it funny and like laugh. But like, my idea, my concept was, and what I'm trying to convey is the fact of, you can get books, you can get other things from charity shops, but you can get these books for practically pennies, dirt cheap. Some of them are like 20p, 50p. Depending on what charity shop you go to, they have different prices. Like I said, Acorns are the best stocked I've found, my personal experience. But the British Heart Foundation, they do have a pretty good collection of the YMCA. There's not many of them around, but if you can find a YMCA, they're fantastic as well. They have usually a good collection. What I find with YMCA is they get so many books. They tend to put buckets of or barrels even, I've seen, of books outside the shop with a big sign going free. Take, and I won't lie. I've stopped in my tracks and I've dumpster dived in these buckets of books. Majority of them are old, boring books, stuff I'd never read, stuff your nan would read. But again, that's me personally. That's what I think. But you might look in there and find a treasure. You might there find a gold. One of the best finds that I ever found was Inkheart. If you've read Inkheart, you'll understand this story. If you haven't read Inkheart, go out and read it. But before you do, listen to this little story. For those of you that haven't read Inkheart, Inkheart is a fairy tale story that, in my opinion, deserves more attention, deserves more love, and I would even go as far as to say is better than Harry Potter at times. I'm trying to think how to best place my words. It's a fairy tale world that's mixed within reality and in fantasy. It's a true bookworms, book addicts book. It's a book written for somebody who loves to read. That's the best way I can explain it without going into details, because if I went into details, I'd be here forever. But one of the main caveats of this story is that inside the book of Inkheart is the book Inkheart, and they're very hard to find. They're very rare inside the story of the book, and that if you can find one, you have to keep it secret, have to keep it sort of hidden, because there are evil forces at bay in this world that are trying to get all of the Inkheart books and destroy them. So there's only one left. That's in the world of the book. Now, I believe that the reason, well, I'm jumping ahead a bit. Inkheart is a very hard book to find in the wild. You can order it online, and you could probably maybe find it in some Waterstones, some H. Smiths, but majority of the time it's a book that it's not easily found. And when you do find it, it's one of those where you want to buy it straight away, because I have a theory that there's a reason why the book is so rare and so hard to find in the wild, is because it's to fit the theme of the story in the book, where in, like, as I mentioned in the book, Inkheart, the book, is in the book. Again, I feel like I'm not explaining this very well, but there are, like I said, there are people trying to find the book inside the story and destroy them all, and there's a few people trying to save them and keep them safe. And that's my idea, was like, because of that idea, that concept, that's why there's so few in the wild, because it kind of plays on the story of people trying to find these. If you find them, collect them and keep them safe. So when I went to my local charity shop and I was going through and I found Inkheart on the shelves, I was like a little kid again. I crumpled. I was like, oh no, I made that noise, quite loud, more loud than I should have, because again, it was a very small shop and I wasn't that far away from the people that were working on the counter. So I wondered why they gave me weird looks when I went to go buy it. But I found it, and it was like, I think it was like £2, and I was like, bargain, take it, mine. Because I've been on the hunt for Inkheart for years. Like, this was a book that was I was going to say destined, but there was a book that I was like, I've got to find this. I've got to get this book. I've got to get my hands on it, but I want to do it properly. I don't want to buy it online. I want to find it in the wild. And I was doing this for years, going to charity shops, looking around, couldn't find it. Again, exactly like the characters in the story, going to charity shops, going to little small indie bookstores. Whenever I would go past any of them, I would jump in to have a look. I was literally reliving the story of the characters in the book, which I didn't realize that I was until I bought the book and I had read it, and I was like, oh god, I was doing the exact same thing. And eventually I found it in the wild. It's a decent copy, a bit beaten up, a bit battered, a bit bruised, but overall fantastic book. Read it, fell in love with it, and I still need to read the next 2 books in the series, but I can't wait. I'm in love with this world and these characters. But again, I wouldn't have had that experience if I hadn't, been so determined to find it, been so determined to go into these charity shops, to find these bargains, to go, how best can I save money? Granted, during COVID, how I wasn't able to go into charity shops. So that was one thing that I missed, that I wasn't able to do. Luckily, there's a charity shop at the top of my road, and they still stayed open. They didn't get many books in, but I would always message them if they got any new books in, just let me know. I'll come up. I'll wear a mask. I would do my hands. Obviously, that was after lockdown. During lockdown, I couldn't do charity shops at all, which was a very shame. But I'd bought so many from the charity shops that I had loads in reserve. But as I said at the beginning, I was running out of reserves, so I needed ways to fuel that addiction. But the reason I bring up charity shops up is because I feel that people should, shake off the stigma, shake off the whole idea of, oh, you went to a charity shop. But like, shake it off, forget about it. Don't worry about what other people say. Go in and just look. Even if you're not buying books, if you're just buying anything, any sort of bric-a-brac, it's all going to a good cause. And that was my mind of like, that's how I felt good in myself about buying so many books, was that it's all going to a good cause, and because I'm going to different charity shops, I'm helping different types of people. I'm helping animals, I'm helping the air ambulance, I'm helping the British Heart Foundation, all these different charities. Even though I'm only giving them, small amounts of money, because what I'm buying is not a lot, and because I'm buying so many in such a rapid succession for so long, because I did this while I was in college, 2 years in college as well. I was in university for 4 years, so 4 years of university. Probably once a week I'd go in. So to say that I, was addicted would be an oversight. It's biblical. It's written in the sand. It's true that I'm very much addicted to books. But like I said, that's how I justified it. I'm giving back to charity, and that's how I'm trying my best to justify it to you, is to go in, have a look. You'll be amazed the amount of the books that you can find in such great condition for pennies. And because you'll find so many books, and if you're listening to this and you've gotten this far, I'm assuming that you're a book nerd as well, and that you have an addiction like I do. So you're not going to buy 1 to 2 books. Potentiality, you'll buy more, depending on how many books there is to scour the shelves through. Um, Again, like I said, it's all going to good cause, going to charity. So I definitely recommend it. I really do. Charity shops are the way to go for bulk books for cheap. You could buy so many books for like £8 to £10. Depending on which charity shop you go to, which prices they have, or what edition it is. Because some of them are. I'm not saying you know they do their research, and so I have gone in there and I wanted to get the it was called Mouse, which is a sort of graphic novel that is based off the Holocaust. I wanted to buy that, and I went in quite naively, thinking, oh, it's not going to be that a lot of money, because it is a bit of an expensive graphic novel, around about £11 to £12, and I was thinking, oh, I'd be able to get it. They wanted it, but they were like, they'd already done their research. They're not silly, and they were like, well, we'll sell you for 10. And I'm like, I currently actually don't have £10. it was a very much moment of me like, oh. So I ended up passing on it, and my friend was like, oh, if you pass on it, I'm taking it. So my friend bought it instead. Luckily, my friend borrowed it me, but I was very Scrooge. I was like, oh god, you got one. But that happened a lot, to be honest. I went there so many times. They knew that I was gonna, and they knew I had an addiction, and they knew I would pay out the nose. I ended up buying books from them, and yeah, it's a funny story. I ain't gonna get into it, but they ended up was like putting the prices up for me, which again I didn't mind paying, but it's more just the fact of, oh god, I've come here too much. You know me too well now. When Luke's in, bump up the prices because he'll buy in bulk. Which again, it's all I jest, and it was a bit of annoyance, but it was like it was a charity, so fair enough, okay. Or at least I could justify it. It's okay. But it just made me laugh. It made me giggle. I knew that they did it, because whenever I walked in, there'd be smiles on their faces of like, haha, again. I'm like, yes. And I'm like, the books, I'm like, yes. Over there. Oh, you bumped up the yeah. Okay, I see what you're doing. It's like they knew I would be in, so they would just get like one of those machines out, and would just like scan them all, and be like, that's it. Up the price, up the price, up the price. Okay, Luke's left. All right, take that sticker off. Take that sticker off. Take that sticker off. You know. Uh, but yeah, but I went off in a little bit tandem there. I went off in a little sort of side story, side sort of thing there. But I highly recommend charity shops. Definitely check them out if you've got one near you, or whenever you pass one, if you're on holiday, wherever you are, just jump in and you'll be amazed by the treasures that you'll find in there. So that's tip number 2: charity shops. Tip number 3. This one's going to be a very short one. Car boots. I don't know in America if you have car boots. I think you have like flea markets, like a yard sale, kind of the same thing. But a car boot is basically what it is, what it sounds like. Somebody selling things at the back of their car boot in a field, which again sounds weird if you don't live here in the UK, but it's completely normal here. Huge field full of cars with stalls up, and people just selling things at the back of their car boots. It sounds dodgy, but it's really, if you get it on a good day, if you get there on a nice sunny day, it's a nice day out. You've got to get up early. You got to get up around about 6 o'clock in the morning, and you've got to be there for about 6:30, 7 o'clock. It's a thing you do over the weekend. You go down and um, yeah, you just because you've got to get there early. If you don't get there early, potentially all the good stuff is gone. All the bargains, all the deals have gone. Um, Now, primarily, I go there for looking for books, and books are not really a thing that people tend to nab. So I can, but usually, I could afford getting there not as earlier and still sort of have a chance of getting sort of bargains. But I go looking for Doctor Who things. I go looking for books, Marvel, DC, movie. I managed to get a few. God, what was it now? It was the original Transformers DVD, but it was on Blu-ray. It was a newer edition. I managed to get that for somebody was getting rid of it. They didn't really want it anymore. I think that was like £2. Um, Online, that DVD Blu-ray is 15 quid. You know, um, and all like it's the same with the books. I've managed to get like Lee Evans, for example. I got his autobiography for like 20p. I've managed to get loads of books for under £1. Uh, Car boots are fantastic. Like I said, they're just like charity shops. You go in there, you'd be surprised about the things that people just want to get rid of. Because again, it is. It's majority of the stuff is things people are moving house or people have just got hoarded things over the years and just had a clear out of like I don't need that no more, don't need that no more. So you'd be surprised what you can get. And again, if you live in America and you have yard sales and flea markets stuff like that, you understand sort of the concept, the idea. People just getting rid of things. And I always say jump on it, especially now lockdown's finished, especially here in the UK, and that the weather's starting to get nicer. I'd recommend look for your local car boot and just go down over the weekend. Obviously, downside you gotta get up early, but trust me, it's worth it. You get there early, you get some of the bargains, get some of the deals, get people while they're still tired, while they're not awake, while they're less likely wanting to haggle, they're less likely wanting to, um, try to strike a bargain. It's more just the fact of, oh, yeah, yeah, 20p, just go away. I'm still tired. I haven't drunk my coffee yet. You know, um, it sounds horrible, but if you want to save money, you've got to be in it to win it. You got to be a Dale boy. And my nana, my granddad were proper Dale boys. They would go in and be like, "How much is this?" And the guy would be like, "Oh, it's £5, love." And my nan was like, Again, it sounds really cheap, but it's so common, so normal, such a normal thing about where I grew up and where I live. Um, that striking a bargain and trying to find ways to save money, you know, it's in my DNA, it's in my family. How to save money. So again, this is why I was so good at trying to find these deals and try to find ways to save money on things that I want. Um, because you shouldn't pay full price for things, you know when there are ways to save money, you should always look to saving money. You know, and car boots are one of the fantastic places for it. And that's that. If it's a good day, you're out in the sun, you're enjoying it. There might be an ice cream van, might be like a coffee and drinks van. There might be a meat man, uh, which sounds really exactly what it is. A big man in a huge sort of trailer truck, selling meat at the back of it. Usually got a loudspeaker on, trying to chat up the old women and I can't do it. I was going to try to do the accent, but I can't do it. Proper, real, sort of thick, sort of accent, talking really quickly. I've got half a pound of meat here, love. If you want this 2 sausages, I'll add in. Here you go, love. I'll add this steak in for you. Because you got a nice smile and all that sort of trick of the trade jargon. It's a good day out. It's fun. So I highly recommend a car boot or like a yard sale. Probably yard sale probably wouldn't be as fun. But if you're in the UK, definitely check out a car boot. Um, Fantastic, and the deals you get are amazing, and especially on books, you can get so many books for like under £1. It's unbelievable. So definitely tip number 3: car boots. Tip number 4: this one's a twofer, 2 for 1 deal. So I'm already saving you listening time, having to listen to another one. I'm going to put these two together because they are basically the same thing, and they both sort of work off each other, which is library and Libby. I'll start with library first. Now, obviously, especially in the UK, I don't know how it is in other places, but in the UK, majority of regions, majority of areas, small little counties, all have a library. Um, and I say make use of them. One of the things about libraries that I find really sort of disheartening is the fact that they're underfunded and underutilized. They're kind of like a thing of, oh, we have a library, don't go there. You know what I mean? It's one of them things of like it's a underutilized sort of thing, underfunded. By the British government, they don't really fund libraries. So I would say go out and support your local library. Get yourself a library card. Um, Library cards probably would cost you £1, £2. To get one. They last probably as long as a passport, 4 to 5 years. Um, and from there, you can basically have unlimited access to um, as many books as you want. In my local library, they have computers that give you access to computers as well. But I can basically take out audiobooks. I can take out physical books. Um, I would say make use of them. Because like I said, they're underfunded, underappreciated, and again, it's disheartening because I love a library. I love a place where people can go and just, well, I would say, well, it is technically free, but can go in. All they got to do is get a library card, and they can basically go in and for free and just read. You don't even have to take the book out. You can just go in and you can read the books. And any place that just allows you to do that, to me, is quite wonderful. It's a very magical place. Um, and I use my libraries a lot. Um, I'm before lockdown, there was always be a time where I'd be like, oh, well, I might check into the library. Uh, that was mainly when I was in university. Obviously, then I finished my last year of university. So lockdown and sort of COVID took rampant, so I haven't been able to go to the library since. Which I will move on to Libby in a minute. The reason why I kind of haven't been to my library in a while. But I highly recommend check out your local library. More than likely, you probably have one around you if you check it online. Um, just they'll be happy to see you. That'd be the best way I can explain it. Going to the library is one of the best ways to help out really in your community. If you have any books to donate, the library will happily take them. If you haven't got a local charity shop near you, library will happily take them. You get a library card, like I said, they're quite cheap to get. They last a very long time, and usually when you renew them, especially if you renew them and you've used them, usually they don't charge you like as much to redeem them. Usually, it's not a lot to redeem them. Um, and again, it's like they last you as long as a passport, so you have a long time to get as much use out of them as possible. But moving on from libraries to Libby, Libby is an app that you can download on your phone. Now, I don't know if it works outside of the UK. I think it only works in the UK. So if you're listening to this part and you're not in the UK, sorry. um, but in the UK, we have this app called Libby. You can download it on iPhones. You can download it on Android. And what it does, it basically works as a hub, as a data point, where when you sign up, it will ask you where you live, the area that you live, and it will say, okay, so you live in this area. Out of this area, here's the libraries in your area. What's the closest one to you? You put in whatever closest to you, and then it will go, okay, put in your library card number, which is the big long number at the back of your library card. You stick that in, and from there you have access to, say for example, you live in London. So you will have access to every single ebook, every single audiobook, and every single magazine that the London library owns, and you'll have access to all of them on your phone. So this was one of my saving graces over lockdown, was because I had my library card, I was able to download Libby, and I was able to get access to all of my library's ebooks and audiobooks throughout lockdown. So I couldn't leave to go to the library, but I could still use the library. I could still support the library by, taking out books through my phone. So I ended up listening to tons and tons of audiobooks, ended up reading loads of ebooks. And Libby was one of the reasons why my end of year count for 2020 and 2021 was so high, was because I had such abundance of audiobooks that I didn't need to use Audible. I didn't need to use other sort of apps that I use for my audiobooks. I had so many of them for free. All I had to do was just click the word borrow, and I had it for usually 20 days. And I would get them finished within 2 to 3 days, depending on how big the book was. And I would give them back, and then I would get another one, and then I listen to that. And it helped me cross off a lot of books on my list, and mainly a lot of classics. I ended up listening to Les Miserables, which is about 44 hours long. Absolutely fantastic, and loved it, enjoyed it. Fantastic book. Highly recommend Les Miserables, and I'd recommend the musical as well. Um, I did listen to some stinkers, but that happens. But I managed to cross a lot of books on my book list off thanks to this app, and I still use it today. My library card has actually ran out since, um, but I got in touch with them, and obviously because of lockdown, wasn't able to go in to redeem it. That they had put an extension on everybody's account so that they can listen to the library for longer until we can go back. So I have been meaning to go back to the library and redeem it. But that's why I say go to your local library, get yourself a library card, take as many books. Well, see, there's usually a limit as amount of books you can take, but go in, have a look what books they've got, take some out. If you can't find them, don't worry. Once you get home, download Libby, log in, make an account, uh, write in where you live, your address. Find your local library. Remember where it is. For example, London. You're in a borough of London. It will then link you to that library, which then links to the library of London's library, and then you have access to every single book, ebook and audiobook and magazines, everything that they have on file on database. You have access to. So if there's ever another lockdown, or if there's ever a time that you can't get out and go to the library, you can just borrow the books on there. And even, for example, that you're listening to an audiobook and you don't, you forget to turn it in, you forget to return it. There's no fines, there's no issues there. It's literally like, oh, well, your time's out. We'll just take the book off you, you know. But you usually get like 20 to 30 days, depending on the book. Depending on the book length, limits to how long you actually have the book for. But the average, I think, is about 25 days. You'll usually get given the book, and that's enough time to, especially with an audiobook, to give it a sit and give it a listen. If it's not a very popular one, you can just borrow it again anyway. But they're always updating every month. They update with new books, especially my library does. My library every month they update with brand new books, and I love it because every month I've got a new selection. And with my local library, I usually get in touch with them, and I ask them of like, well, maybe sort of next month, can you update with a few Star Wars books, or can you put a few Doctor Who books in? And they listened. This month for February, when I'm recording this, I put requests in January if they could put a few more Doctor Who books in, because I felt like there wasn't enough. And again, they didn't need to listen to me. They didn't need to take my advice at all. But lo and behold, update came this month. I checked it out, and majority of the new books that they added were all Doctor Who books, and I was really, really happy because majority of them were audio as well. So I was like, wow, I know what I'm doing for the next few months. But that's the point, and that's the thing of like, was in lockdown, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. So I downloaded Libby because I had a library card that was still valid, and I just made use of it. And it was one of the biggest sort of helpings for me to read. The 200 books that I read, to read the 180 books that I read the year after, and the years before, and currently. So I highly recommend it. Go to your library, support your local library, get a library card, download Libby, and just reap the benefits. You for the probably like £1 to £2 you pay for a library card, and for how long you get the use of it, and the use of Libby, and the use of the library, and all the library facilities. Basically, it's like stealing. You're basically stealing, and that's what it's like, because it's all, once you've paid that small fee, you have access to all that. It's practically, it amazes me that when I tell people about this, they're like, what? Really? Seriously? I'm like, yeah, make use of it. Make use of your library. Make use of Libby, because they are they're practically giving it to you. So take it. It's basically free. Take it, grab it, use it. absorb it, enjoy it. So that is my tip number 4. Go to local library, support it, get a library card, and use Libby. For God's sakes, download Libby right now. If you have a library card, download it now. If you haven't got a library card, get one, then download Libby, because it's practically stealing. Tip number 5, which is another 2-for-1 deal, Audible and Kindle. I'm going to start with Audible because I use that the most. Audible is fantastic. For those of you who don't know what Audible is a subset of Amazon, and they basically handle, well, primarily audiobooks. Everything that they do is all audiobooks, from audiobooks to podcasts. I mainly use them just for audiobooks because I tend to not really like the podcasts that they have on there. But that being said, if you have Amazon Prime, it comes in as a package deal with it. So if you have it and you don't really sort of realize you probably already have Audible. One of the things I love about Audible is that every month you'll get a free credit. And you can use that free credit to basically, no matter how expensive the book is, it's free. Technically you can spend the credit on it and you can have it. Also as well, if you sign up to Audible, they usually give you your first book free. So you get 2-for-1. So you get your first book for free, and you might have a credit or might not, where you can spend on sort of other books. So if you think about it, you can tend to get 2 to 3 sort of audiobooks for free just by sort of signing up and using it for the first time. So that's worth it. As for Kindle, Kindle's great as well. Again, I don't use Kindle as much because I don't really read many sort of ebooks as I should, because I have loads, but I just never really get the time to. I don't like sitting and staring at my phone. I would rather be staring at a piece of a piece of paper, than I would rather read a book off my phone. But Kindle's great. Kindle always seem to offer deals. I've seen books that are brand new that are being sold for 99p. They have their weekly and daily deals, and I've seen loads of books that I just go for so cheap, and it's like, how is it they can get away with selling these books for pennies, and then and it just amazes me. My mother and my sister, they use Kindle a lot, so they basically benefit from it. But there's a lot of indie books on there. You can get a lot of use out of them. Like I said, I don't tend to use it myself, but Audible again was another saving grace for me over the COVID lockdown period, because I was able to hoard up my credits because I was using the Libby app. That I didn't have to. Every month I didn't have to buy a new audiobook because I had so much to have on the Libby app that I basically saved up my credits. So when I came back to Audible, I had loads of credits spare. And Audible always have their 2-for-1 deals where you can spend credit on one, get the second one for free. So I was doing a lot of those deals, basically saving the credits, saving as much as I possibly could. And if you have Audible, recommend it. I think it's about £7 a month. It is a subscription service, so that might put some people off. But technically, £7 a month, one free credit each month, and if you're smart about it, you can save that one credit, and you can hopefully get what you want in a 2-for-1 sale. So you get 2 books for the price of 1 credit. So it is worth it if you're clever on how to use it. But again, I highly recommend looking at Audible, giving it a go. I use it. I've been using it for years. I love it. I know I can't recommend it enough. Kindle, not so much, but they're always doing deals. Kindle is you can guarantee there's always a deal going on with Kindle, so definitely check that out. Again, I know it's Amazon. A lot of people don't really want to use Amazon in that respect. I understand, but I would recommend just looking into it and making use of it as best as you can. Also, one thing that I do want to say, one thing I've been taking use of quite recently, because it's a new thing that Amazon have added to Audible, is Audible Plus. Audible Plus is it's part of Audible if you have Amazon Prime, and basically what it is, it's how best I can explain it. They basically give you free books, so they have a huge catalogue of different genres of loads of books basically for free that you don't have to pay for, you don't have to buy. You can just add them to your library. Um, and I have done. I'm currently listening to The Count of Monte Cristo, which was a free book from them. I've used it to listen to some Bill Bryson books, which Bill Bryson's fantastic. I've used it to listen to some Neil deGrasse Tyson on the universe. I've used it for books that are not really of like education based. Like I listened to a book called Citizen Coke, which is about the history and life of how Coca-Cola has basically taken over the world. Incredibly fascinating book, but not one I'd want to buy and pay for. But because it was free, I'd happily sort of listen to it, and I'm glad I did. It was really good. But again, it's not one you'd want to pay for. You know, so there's benefits there. So again, if you have Amazon Prime and you have Audible, have a look into the Amazon Plus and to see what they have. They might have books on there that you really want to read that have been on your wish list for a long, long time. Pardon me, and you can now get them for free, so you don't have to wait. So you can free up more time for more books and more space down the line. So yeah, I highly recommend it. Check out Audible Plus if you have Amazon Prime, and yeah, check them both out, Audible and Kindle. You'd be surprised at the kind of things that you can find, the deals you can find. So I highly recommend those too. And that's it really for my tips and tricks. I left a few things out. I left out one store, The Works. If you live in the UK, there's a shop called The Works. Definitely go in and check them out. They always have deals and books that you wouldn't even expect to be in there, but are going for extremely cheaply. Especially box sets of books. I managed to get the Long Earth, Terry Pratchett, and Stephen Baxter book collection. I think for £10, and anywhere else it was upwards of 15 to 20. So always looking for a deal, always looking for a bargain. So I definitely recommend checking the works out. Um, but with these tips and tricks, I've given you things that you can do at home, things that when lockdown sort of ends, or well, it has ended, but you know what I mean, like when things are at a point where you don't want to leave the house, or have anxiety or mental health issues. You don't really want to leave the house, you don't want to socialize. There are other ways where you can indulge in books, you know where you don't have to sort of leave the house, where you can do order books, you can shop online and they deliver it to you. You can use the Libby app, and you can get access to all of the books from your local your city's library, or their ebooks and stuff, so you can just sort of disappear into books. Not disappear, obviously we don't want anybody to disappear, but you know what I mean, like you can just like get access to all these worlds for free just by having a library card. And also, I tell people the power of a library card is underrated. You feel like such a VIP, or the access that you get, and it's just a shame not many people have one, or not many people use them, um, because it's you'll be amazed at the access that you get. Um, but yeah, I hope all these sort of tips and tricks help. I feel like I might have waffled, or I feel like I might have gone a bit too deep into some of them that didn't need to go as deep, or I spoke about some a bit more than I did. But that's just me overthinking. That's just me sort of critiquing my work, because again, I want it to be as good as possible, as well as obviously I don't want to waffle as much. But I've just come to terms with the fact, shouldn't I, that I waffle, and that's just who I am. But I always try my best to bring it back to the point, and I have that really weird arcane sort of ability of being able to waffle and waffle and waffle and go off on tandems, but find somehow to come back to the original point. Um, as I did just there, and as I've come back to the original point now. But no, I do hope that these tips and tricks help um, you folks listening. If you don't live in the UK, again, it might be a bit different. I think there might be an American version of Libby. I'm not really entirely sure. Um, but definitely still, use your local library, no matter where you are in the world listening to this. Make use of your local library. Like I said, they are incredibly underfunded, underappreciated. It's like the afterthought of your city's council. Whenever the council spend money on things, the library is usually one of the last things to get um, attention. Some counties are different. Some places are different. Some councils put priority into libraries. Where I live, sadly, they don't. They put priority to other things. So I do say, no matter where you live, definitely make use. They'll love to see you. They love to have a company. I've always said that I think if I would love to be a library person, like working in a library would be a fantastic job for me, you know. Um, or even just working in a shop with books. I'd love to work in like Waterstones, Double H Smiths. Working around books and working around literature would be fantastic for me. Um, I just don't like people. That's the issue. Working in a library is good because you don't see many people. Um, but that's a me problem. That's something I've got to get over the fact of. But definitely, get a library card, get Libby, check your local charity shops, check out World of Books, especially if you live in the UK, free delivery, and who doesn't love free delivery? Um, check out Audible, check out Kindle. If you have any, I don't, sadly, I wish I did, but if you have any indie bookstores, any sort of, family-run bookstores in your area, again, like your local library, underappreciated, underloved. Don't use Amazon if you can help it. Um, you know, check them out. Again, I'd love to see you and just support your local sort of indie bookstores if you have them. I don't. Like, again, sadly, all I've got is Waterstones and Double H Smiths by me. So that's the best I can do. But again, I tend to use charity shops instead because again, better, cheaper, as well as I'm supporting and giving back to charity. I'm not giving back to a big company. It's the same with eBay. Use eBay as much as you can. One of the biggest tips I can give you for eBay is if you find a book or not even a book, or something that you want, uh, put it in your basket, but leave it there. What you'll tend to find within the next day or two, you'll get an email off eBay saying, "Oh, we noticed that you've got so and so item in your basket. We have found similar items that you might like, or the exact same item but for cheaper." So many times I've had books that I want to buy, but they might be a bit too expensive. So I've stuck it in my basket and I've just left it. And within a day or two, I'll get an email saying, "Oh, we saw that you wanted to buy certain thing. Here's that same thing but for cheaper." Or here's things that are similar to said thing for cheaper, you know. And I've managed to get books and I've managed to get things off eBay for a lot cheaper, mainly just by using eBay. Instead of being like, oh well, I want it, I'm gonna have to buy it now. It's more just like, well, hold on a second. If there's no bidding, so if there's no bidding on it, if it's saying buy now, just stick it into your basket and just leave it. And then 9 times out of 10, you will get an email off eBay saying, "Oh, we see you're going to buy this item. Here it is, similar. Maybe add this to your cart or so and so forth." And you can end up saving deals just by using eBay. The way eBay is. So again, that's a deal. That's a bargain tip of how to use eBay. Don't just rush in. Find what you want, stick it in your basket, walk away, and just wait. And eBay will do the work for you. Or they'll give you a coupon, or they'll give you a voucher sometimes of like, oh, here you go, here's a £5 voucher on said items or so on and so forth. So it's all about trying to save money and trying to find ways to spend less but get more. Um, but yeah, I hope these tips work. I hope the tips help you. They've helped me. Like I said, following some of these tips, not all of them, obviously, because of lockdown. Some of them I couldn't do. Um, but following these guidelines, following these tips, were the reason why I was able to read so many books in 2020, why I was able to read so many last year, and why I'm reading so much this year is because I'm making use of like Audible Plus. I'm making use of Libby. I'm making use of going to, well, not recently, but making use of potentially going to charity shops, and checking out what they've got there. Currently, I've got so many books stacked up that I need to read from Christmas that I won't be buying any new books. So audiobooks and ebooks are the way to go for me. But eventually, when I sort of run out of books and when I'm in need of more, I will be going out to World of Books and I will be checking out charity shops. Um, but yeah, make use, just shop around, look around, go to places you wouldn't normally go, you know, going to charity shops, again, that just like a library, just like these indie bookstores, charity shops would love to have your business. They would actually prefer to have your business. They'd prefer you to go there than go anywhere else. And even if you go in and you don't find anything, just by going in and saying hello, is worth it. We're all human at the end of the day, and just going in, for people that don't really get much interaction, just be like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm just looking around. There's nothing really like I really like here, but but I might come in again if you get more books or you get more whatever in. Let me know. Usually, because people sort of donate a lot. You can usually be like, oh, people have we get like a new stock in the books next week, or we get a new this, new that, and then you come back and you can see what there is and spend a bit of money. But yeah, so those are my tips. As for closing and coming to the end of it, as for what reading updates and all that, I got a bit further into Jacinto's Remnant. Fantastic, loved it, enjoy it. Again, it's a very human book. Karen Travis is fantastic. I won't go into detail about it, is because, like I said I've read a bit more, but when I say that, it's not as much as I would like. um, Not much has happened since, like, in terms of from when I spoke about it last week to now, they're still in the same place. They're still in the same area. They're currently getting ready to go on a boat to basically look for some islands that haven't been infested by locust. So not much has happened as of yet, but when hopefully next week when I come to doing you another update, more things have happened. Um, in the Audible and the audiobook sort of front, Count of Monte Cristo, fantastic. I'm currently got like 20 hours left, but I'm really enjoying it, really loving it. Fantastic book. Highly recommend the Count of Monte Cristo to anybody. It's a story of revenge, but I wouldn't condone revenge, but it makes revenge seem interesting. It makes revenge seem fun, and like, again, I'm not one to condone revenge, but when it's done in such a fun and interesting way, you know, maybe. But don't listen to me. Check the book out. Revenge is never a good thing, but in terms of this book, it is. But you have to read it to find out why. I haven't watched the final episode of the Book of Boba Fett yet. I was going to do that today, but I wanted to get this out first. Well, I wanted to record this first, shall I say. So the Book of Boba Fett, I'm going to watch that today, and I might, depending on how good it is, I might do a side quest talking about it on the Saturday or Sunday. Again, I will let you folks know my thoughts and my feelings on it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm hoping that it's a good ending, that it's not just like, even though I'm not complaining, that I love to see Mandalorian and I love to see Grogu, but it just feels like, like Boba Fett has become a side character, has become a cameo in his own TV show, at this point. So I want a proper ending for Boba Fett. I want Boba Fett. That's what I want for the ending. If Mandalorian's going to be there, fine, but I just want a good ending for Boba Fett. Um, so we'll see. I'm going to go watch after I finish recording this. So it won't be long until I find out for myself. But that's about it, really, in terms of it. Looking at, as I would just reiterate, I hope that the tips and tricks and all that, I hope they help, and hope they they give some advice on how to sort of save money, because that's the main thing at the end of the day. That's the main prerogative. It's about finding ways to feed said addiction without having to let the addiction take over completely. Because at one stage, before I started following these rules, one thing I learned quite early on when I got into reading was, I assumed that because I wasn't a book fan at the time, that reading wasn't expensive. That I assumed that books are cheap, because who reads nowadays? That was my mindset of like, well, nobody reads anymore nowadays. It's a very niche, very small thing, and I just thought, well, reading's got to be really cheap. And then I looked into it and I realized reading is expensive. Reading is a very expensive hobby. And from there, I was like, well, I've got, I can keep going like this and skint myself out, or I can find ways to save money. So over the years, from like 2014 and onwards, going through college, university, up until now, I've just tried to find ways to save money. And, these were just my best tips. But like I said, there are many other ways. There's many other shops, many indie bookstores, using eBay against itself, you know, as well as all the other tips that I gave, there are ways to save money. You've just got to know where to look. You've just got to put the time in. I've put the research in, and this is what I found over the years of just shopping around. But I'm sure there's other ways. I'm sure there's other sort of ways of doing it that I haven't found yet. So if there's ways that work for you, again, let me know. If these tips and tricks help you, again, let me know on Twitter. Tweet me, or just let me know sort of elseways. And yeah, so like as I'm going to say, I hope it helps. Hope they work. Just reiterate that. If they don't work, again, let me know, and we can kind of hopefully sit down and try to figure out how to save you money. In terms of books, that is, I'm not going to do your bills. Please don't ask me to do your finances. I'm terrible at maths as it is. I'll probably just sit down and cry. But always try my best to help people as much as possible. And yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for checking it out. And I'm going to sign off now because I've run out of things to say. So, as always, stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace. And thank you for listening to this episode of Nerdstalgic with me, your host, Luke, the Ginger Bookworm.